Fear is the mother of isolation, as grief is the mother of guilt. The acceptance of losing someone can be almost impossible. And when the hope of looking forward to seeing someone you loved is forever in doubt, the spaces in between can lead to a life sentence of loneliness. Eddie is a retired Los Angeles police officer. Rosa, a restaurant manager. His wife committed suicide. Her husband disappeared in Mexico. Their self-imposed guilt has led them to destroy their dreams. But their attraction to one another might be the key towards unlocking the deep sadness and uncertainty that has held their souls in a timeless prison without love or connection to the outside world. Isolated from family, friends, and life, they're really only hiding from themselves. Director Melvin Ishmael Johnson presents a story by George Corbin, Sábado Mornings, developed by the Playwrights Workshop Lab at the Roby Theater. Sábado Mornings stars J.C. Cadena as Rosa, Jonathan Wynn is Eddie, and also starring T.J. Ba and Aaron Garcia. Sábado Mornings, opening Thursday, September 8th, running through Sunday, September 25th, at Studio Stage, 520 Northwestern, Fridays and Saturdays at 8 and Sundays at 5. Tickets available at blacktheater.org.
Okay, that's Sábado Mornings. And this is the last weekend of Sábado Mornings by George Corbin. This Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, September the 23rd, 24th, and 25th. Friday and Saturday at 8, Sunday at 5 at the Studio Stage, 520 Northwestern Avenue, LA, California 90004. For ticket information, 213-908-5032, online tickets, blacktheater.org. Welcome to Theater in Focus, an in-depth look at theater on the local scene in Los Angeles. May the peace and blessings of the life-giving creative spirit be upon you and upon your family. My name is Melvin Ishmael Johnson, coming at you live from Morris Media Studio. I'm in the studio with my co-host Bill White and our two special guests, in which we'll talk to in just a few minutes. Now, to see the broadcast live, Google in morrismedialive.com. Tonight on Theater in Focus, we will talk about the play Sábado Mornings and how to improve Black-Hispanic relationships. We also have with us in the studio musician Jack Landrone, who is performing this Saturday at 4 o'clock at the Studio Stage with a pre-show cabaret. We'll talk to him about the event. But first we have on the line the writer of Sábado Morning, George Corbin. George, welcome to Theater in Focus.
Glad to be here. Bear with me. As you know, I'm still recovering from surgery, and I take pills occasionally, so hopefully I make a lot of sense.
Okay.
Hi, Bill.
Hi,
Aaron,
George.
What's up, George?
Mel, and glad to meet you, Jack.
Okay, George, how did you first get involved with playwriting? Let's talk about that first.
Well, I retired from my business job in 2004, and I was a member, I'm still a member of Alpha Phi Alpha, and quite active, and my younger brother is a member, but as foreign students, because we are both from Bermuda, we had the experience of being maybe a little on the outside. And one day I got the urge to sit down and write a play. I had no idea what I was doing. It was called New Man. It was about a small group of fraternity brothers who meet in Africa after 25 years or so. One of them had come from Africa, and he'd always talked about meeting again or having a reunion. And they get trapped at this waterhole, and they are endangered by a few black boy soldiers. And they have to rely on their skills and their trust to break through to these young, black, and very dangerous boy soldiers.
So that was your first play?
Yeah, had Zippo, no idea what I was doing, but I enjoyed the process. After that, I figured I'd better learn how to do this stuff, so I submitted something to BAM at the Roby Playwrights Program, and for the next 5 years, I drove to Fifth and Spring to the workshops every Saturday morning to learn the craft.
Mm-hmm. Now, how did SÁBADO Morning come about?
SÁBADO Morning came about because of a couple of things. One, I was intrigued and frankly a little concerned that in the same building, LATC, we had two different racial ethnic groups working on and creating plays, namely the Roby and then the Latino side of the aisle. And I was quite naive, and I didn't pretend to have a lot of knowledge of the history, but it struck me that, hey, we're in the same area of creating stories, and stories about people, ethnicity, race, and so forth. So, every Saturday, as I mentioned, I'd drive down from Thousand Oaks. I never knew what the freeway would be like, and many times I got there early. There was a little Mexican restaurant across the street. So I would be the first customer and sit at the window, get a cup of coffee, and I would talk to Bianca, the middle-aged Latino restaurant manager waitress. And she shared her background and information. We became a little somewhat friendly. And I started to create in my head, because she told me stories about a family back in Mexico, her experience moving to the U.S. And then I thought of Ben Gilroy, who looked like the ideal retired LAPD homicide detective. And maybe because of my romantic side, I created this story about two middle-aged Angelinos who meet in this restaurant, who are ridden with guilt and are closed off. And the idea was their salvation would be in each other. And then I created the story. Mm-hmm. I wanted it to be a romantic story, a middle-aged romantic story. Mm-hmm. The racial and ethnicity aspects were secondary to the love story.
Let's talk a minute, since we got Aaron right here in the studio. Let's talk about the Benny character. How did that develop? That's a character that you developed later on and added to the production. Can you?
Yeah. Hey, Aaron. Wake up there. I'm watching you. Aaron, we were lucky to get. Mel and I talked about the need to expand and make the chef, the cook, a Latino. And in my mind, to add to the depth of the play as far as Rosa having additional challenges and having a kind of quasi-little brother relationship with the chef, who is second-generation American. And I wanted that affectionate big sister, little brother relationship to highlight and bring out an issue that Rosa would have to confront, namely her mother's need for her back in Mexico. So also, both of them had dreams, both Rosa and Benny, of moving beyond where they were currently as far as education, careers, etc.
What would you like to ask Aaron about playing the Benny character?
Well, this is supposedly a contemporary play, and as you know, I added the concept of the chipster, the Chicano hipster. I thought that offers the potential for him to explore a little humor. So I guess, Aaron, how did you read the character as I wrote him? What did you want to explore?
I love the chipster line because I think it was very appropriate for the times we're in. You know, like I suppose hipster culture kind of it's like a millennial generation. No matter what race, everyone can kind of partake in it. So it's kind of giving him both of these identities and none of them at once, which is kind of where Benny's at, right? He's second generation, and he's not solidly one or the other. He's this in-between thing, you know? So I thought it just gave this interesting life to him, or at least something more than just a stock character, you know, like a cook in the back. But also, like, you know, it informs the character, like the lightness or the humor, or I don't know, it just made him much more interesting to play than Cook.
Okay.
Okay, George, a couple more things I want to ask you. And I'm asking everybody to spread the word. This is our last weekend. We're trying to get people in the seats coming up for Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So tell your friends about it. So, George, what do you think is the key to improving Black-Hispanic relationships, especially in the Southern California area?
Hey, you asking me? An African American from Thousand Oaks, where the population is 1.1 African American and about 8% Latino.
Mm-hmm.
A serious question, I understand, and I don't pretend to have the answers to that question, but I have some thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
When I'm asked a big question like that, I tend to turn towards my heroes. One of them is Dr. King. And Dr. King, as you may remember, sent a telegram to Cesar Chavez, another hero of mine, and encouraging him. And they both talked about this common challenge that they have, this mutual issue, this recognition that we were all in the same boat. And I personally think it starts with each of us. We examine ourselves in terms of, well, there are two qualities I think a playwright, to be effective, must have, and that's empathy and curiosity. And those two elements help us as individuals to reach out to our neighbors, to those who we come in contact with, who may be slightly different than us. If you're not curious and you're not empathetic, you don't connect. And to build better relationships, it starts with each of us. It starts with basic stuff, and now you're involved in neighborhood associations and building connections, but it starts with the one-on-one. And I think when it comes to black and brown relationship, and you recognize, of course, when you say building black and Latino, the Latino spectrum ranges from Mexican American to the Caribbean to, it's a very, very complex and myriad mix of peoples with different views.
Mm-hmm.
But we're all human beings, and this worldview of reaching out and looking at the other and assuming they have common needs, common feelings. I think that's where it starts.
Okay. And we're going to get into the subject and really, really dig deep into it for the rest of the show. But I want to thank you for coming on. But before I let you go, I want to see if Bill or anybody else have a question for you.
No, I'm good, George. You've been very eloquent about what I really needed to. I want to ask you is about the what you think about the Hispanic, Mexican, black relation, and Melvin dealt with that.
Yeah, I've invited a couple of friends for Sunday's performance, and hopefully they will help with the dialogue with our panel. We only have 15 minutes after the show. Perhaps there will be a few gems of enlightenment which will emerge from that discussion. That's what I'm hoping, at least.
Okay, George. Thank you very much, and we're looking forward to closing out this weekend.
Well, I'm anxious to listen to and observe the rest of the podcast, so go get them.
All right, thank you, George.
All right, bye, George.
Take care.
George Corbin, playwright, Sábado morning, the Roby Advanced Playwriting Workshop. Let's go around the table and introduce ourselves, starting over here.
Okay, I'm Aaron Garcia. I play Benny in Sábado mornings.
Tell us a little about your background.
Well, yeah, I guess. Well, I've been in LA 7 months, and before that, I was living in China. But my dad's side of the family is originally from New York, and then my mom's Irish.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I know I lived in England for a while, in China, and South Carolina, and now here in sunny LA.
In China, do they have anything like the Chicano hipster comparison? The youngsters there?
Yeah, you have a lot of the young generation kind of, they steal every part of Western culture and just combine them into their own thing. So they're all chipsters, goths, and whatever. You know, it's they have a little bit of everything.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay, let's move over to Bill right quick, and then I'm going to get into Jack. Yeah.
Well, what do you want to know? Originally, I'm Jamaican, but I've been away for so long. I was in New York, and I've traveled a little bit, and then I came to Los Angeles maybe a few years ago. In fact, the day after I landed in Los Angeles, you had the Northridge earthquake.
Wow.
After that, I was thinking of going back.
The rest was easy, right?
Yeah, after that, the rest is easy. I'm a director and producer and a writer. And the last play I directed was the play by written by Melvin, Catch the Tiger. I'm going to be directing a reading of Strangled Nocturnes this coming Wednesday, and we'll talk about that a little further on in the program.
Okay. Let's move over to Jack. As I mentioned earlier, Jack Landrum will be performing this Saturday, September 24th, 2016 at 4 o'clock at the Studio Stage, 520 Northwestern Avenue. So come on out and check that out. Quite a treat. So, Jack, welcome to the studio Theater in Focus. Let's start off with, I know I did an interview with you and Mitch, still my favorite interview. I listen to it all the time. Can you talk a little about your early history and how you got off into music and all of that for us?
I was born in Puerto Rico and grew up in Boston, Massachusetts, and where I went to school. I went to Emerson College, and I was studying acting, because that's what I always wanted to be. And when I told my parents I wanted to be an actor, they said, well, no, we want you to go to college. So Emerson College had a strong theater department. So I went to Emerson College, and my parents were killed in a boating accident. We had a place in Maine, and anyway, I was an orphan at in my early 20s. I made tuition and supported myself by playing a guitar and singing. Folk music was very popular at that time, and I knew folk songs. I knew them because, we sang aguinaldos and the Puerto Rican equivalent of Christmas carols and stuff like that. My grandmother, who was from the Danish West Indies, it was called, I think it's St. Thomas, and she it was interesting because, as a young kid, I'd never heard her speak English. And one time when my mother was having a baby that would have been my sister had she survived, my grandmother came to live with us. And they had a parent-teachers conference at school. And she came up and she told the teacher that she was there, to be with Jack Landrum. I said, I couldn't believe it. She was talking like that. And I don't know why, but I was just mortified. And when she talked English, she would say things were hottening on the stove, and she didn't like being in America because I had a hat and over hat, a coat and over coat, shoes and over shoes. She wanted to go back to her. I couldn't believe that she talked like that. It was scandalous. So I grew up with a very varied kind of background, and it got weirder because racism is an insidious thing. I'm going on rambling. Is it okay?
Yeah, fine.
Go ahead. Yes.
It's an insidious thing because, it is. There's a damage or an unfortunate thing that comes from within and without. I remember my grandfather telling me, and the embarrassing thing is that a certain part of me still holds on to the things you're taught as a kid you hold on to. Mm-hmm. But my grandfather told me, you are not a Negro. An Irish person has Ireland to go to, an English person have England to go to, a German person have Germany. There is no Negro land. You are Puerto Rican. You have land. Well, this was something, yes, I took to heart. I was Puerto Rican, but I wasn't going to tell my black friends that a Negro was ex-property, because if they had some kind of resentment about that, they were going to take it out by knocking me down, and I did not like getting beat up. So that was one way that I was bent. I studied acting at Emerson College and went to New York and worked. That's the first time I realized that many Puerto Ricans, the light-skinned Puerto Ricans, they think they are white and they behave as white people. In my family, we were all different colors and we were all Puerto Rican, but there was a racial divide that America imposes on us. People will choose to be in the dominant culture if they can, because life is easier. So, okay, I had to accept that. I worked in and lived in New York for about 40 years. Then I came out here to Los Angeles, and talk about a culture shock. I didn't know anything about Mexicans, except that, they had those big wide hats and they, all that stuff. But going into a supermarket to get Hispanic foods, Hispanic foods here. The difference is that the Caribbean culture is more, it has a greater African influence. And so our foods, we have yautía, llames, sweet potatoes, I think you would call them here, and the vegetables that grow on the ground. We have plátanos. We have it's food that was brought by slaves to this country. And so when I first got here and I'm looking for Hispanic foods, and they had cans of refried beans. We don't fry beans in the first place, so I think a refried bean. Not only that, Mexicans eat chiles. I mean, first time I ever had that food. I mean, I ate it and it was delicious at first, but then hot searing flames shot out of me in every orifice. I mean, it was just amazing. And then also the thing about California, which was hard for me to get used to, is there isn't a Caribbean influence here much. I don't know if you would disagree, but
I agree. Yeah. I agree, sure.
So when they'd see a black man speaking Spanish, every guy the condo I was living at the time, every man with a leaf blower that took care of the stuff, where did you learn that? Because I was an oddity because there are no black people. There aren't. I won't say there are none, but that is somewhat rare here. And I don't know if Aaron would agree with that or not. But
no, it's actually not rare. But a black Puerto Rican speaking Spanish, maybe.
It's funny because my dad's parents are Puerto Rican. So my dad's Puerto Rican. And my mom's white. She's Irish. But I don't know. It's funny you saying everything because it is that thing of people will put on you more than you feel yourself, right?
There are expectations put on you from what the people looking at you or meeting you think you should be.
Yeah.
And there's always another person who I say I am, who I feel I am, that sometimes is at war with the person you say I am. Do you yeah.
The reason why I say that is because I've met a lot of black Mexicans and a lot of South Americans.
I just found out that there were black Mexicans.
I just found out that there are black Mexicans.
I went out to Boyle Heights. There was a girl that made this film about these black Mexicans. I forgot the name of the film, but it was fascinating that there's a group, and they don't identify with Africa particularly. They know that they're black, but they're Mexicans, and they're at war with the Mexican government wanting to be recognized as Mexicans, but they are Afro. Have you heard about any of that? It's amazing.
Yeah. I've also ran into a lot of Brazilians who are black, and they have a very strong identification with Africa. Mm-hmm. I find that the Central Americans, you're right, they don't has as much strong identity with Africa, except maybe for Panama, black folks from Panama. But the reason why I know a lot because I was in an organization which had a lot of different kinds of Spanish-speaking people. They all speak English, of course, because I was there, but they had backgrounds in all over the Spanish world, and I was kind of surprised at that. But
well, you want to know? Here's another thing that's kind of weird because when I was young, I'm older than coffee, so I go way back. When I was in grade school, they discouraged people that came from other country or other ethnicities or cultures from speaking another language. I was discouraged from speaking Spanish. Mm-hmm. We're in America now, and this English is our language. So, like, I have a cousin. His name was Jesus, and he came home. Jesus, J-E-S-U-S is how you spell it in Spanish. The J is aspirated. Mm-hmm. Jesus. He came home from school and announced that his name was Danny. Because the teacher wasn't going to call this little brown-skinned boy Jesus. It said, no, your name is Danny. And he has been Danny ever since. So, like, in some ways, we're damaged people, which, for me, was even weirder when I came to Mexico, where are we? In Los Angeles, because I have been... First of all, I didn't get any work as an actor, so like I went back to singing because I could do that. And I have been doing a lot of stuff. Last night, I played at a place called the Community Coalition. And it's a neighborhood where the blacks and the Chicanos are working hard to try to get along. I never realized that there was such a divide between Afro-Americans and Mexican-Americans. But apparently here in California, that is a big thing. And I get hired many places to help bridge gaps. My Spanish ain't that good, but like, hey, okay, I'm an expert. I'm Spanish and I'm black, and hey, let's all get together. We shall overcome. It's it's.
Well, let me ask this because I remember because I'm a veteran too during the Vietnam period, and I remember right during what they call the conscious movement of the '60s, especially out here, the question came up on whether African Americans should move in the directions of learning Swahili or Spanish during that particular time, during the 60s.
Really?
And so most of the conscious movement, people involved with the Panthers and all that kind of stuff like that, went in the direction of pushing towards Swahili. And now, as I look at that gap, that's one of the things I want to talk about, is do the African American need to push Spanish as a second language? Simply because when you look at the history, you have to look at anybody that speaks the Spanish language have over 800 years of Islam in their background. Because it was Islamic Spain that educated Europe,
the Moors,
and and Islamic North Africa that you had two educational systems, one in North Africa and one in Spain, coming to Spain, and I often hear now when they talk about the Hispanic as being the largest, or the Latino, whatever term they want to use, as being the largest minority now replacing African American. But I really think that's a fallacy, because when you look at the Hispanic and Latino community as a whole, there's a huge African component. See, and I always think the problem with the descendants of the slaves of America, the African American, is that we can't communicate with that component because we didn't learn Spanish in the 60s. We learned, to me, it's just like the Latino calling themselves Latina or learning the language of Latin, which to me is a dead language. It makes no sense at all. But when you look at the history of that Spanish language, how it was able to merge with that Arabic language and actually connect the civilizations of the past that we have now, and all these educational systems that we have can be traced to Islamic Spain or either Islamic North Africa. So, and then when you look at the job situation, I was talking about that with Bill earlier. When you go to most of the places you apply for jobs, They looking for people who are bilingual now, especially out here. They want to know you speak the Spanish language, you speak English, and then other language. But out here, that's the main. What do you think about that? You think it's important for the black community to learn Spanish as a second language now so we can communicate better?
I don't know that it's important that anybody learn a second language, but if you do learn a second language, I think it would be a more intelligent choice to choose Spanish over Swahili because more people speak Spanish. And not only that, the involvement in the Spanish and African cultures is deeper than many other aspects of the culture. The interesting thing about folk music, I got into folk music, is that American music owes a great debt to Africa. Jazz and all of that has influenced American music. But what the slaves, when they came here, they noticed that English is on the beat. 1, 2, 3, 4, window, rug. In Spanish and in African languages, the accent is on the next to the last syllable. Window, ventana, rug, alfombra. So singing became very weird for the Africans in that clapping on 1, 2, 3, 4, an example, do Lord, white people, do Lord, oh do remember me. That was didn't have enough
Stiff.
Going on. Yeah. And the slaves would have to go, do Lord, oh do Lord, on the 2 and 4. Because if the accent on the language is on the first beat, let's shake ourselves on the 2 and the 4 so that it gave you more room. Do Lord, oh hey, hey, remember me. I say, it was too confining the way American music went. And jazz, blues, everything has adopted that approach. And that is one way a fundamental influence has been exerted on all of our culture. Mm-hmm. Then the foods that I grew up with, I remember my madrina, my godmother, was Santera. She went to Africa. Mm-hmm. They had Santeria is a African-based religion that slaves invented actually when they came here because they weren't supposed to be Christian, so that they would be worshiping the African Orishas gods. They would say that Yemaja was Saint Barbara. So like nobody would come down on you, give you a hard time, but they were really praying to Shango, Obatala, whatever, but they would give them Christian names. She went to a conference in Santeria, and she came back and she said, in Africa they have everything there. They have plátanos, they have rice, hambing. Hey, she didn't know that came from there. They brought it here to us. She thought they have everything that we have. We are damaged people. We don't know how much we owe to one another. We don't know how much we are alike. And even when we are faced with it, sometimes we reject it because it's the greatest. Mm-hmm. Do you know where I'm going with that? Yeah.
Well, look, Jack, can you play a song for us? And then we go to, I want to be able to do a spotlight on Lee Beck in the Public Works.
Well, you got me in a chair with arms, mm-hmm. and it's hard to play a guitar in this kind of position. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So, chat amongst yourselves.
But what you were saying is so interesting because you look at like the Latin countries and people Latino. You look at Cubans or Puerto Ricans; they can be every shade, dark to very light skin, and there's like an acceptance of it. It's not that much. And then here, what you were saying earlier, it's the difference is like in these other countries, culture has been allowed to change and grow and become what it is, whereas here it was actively stamped out or tried, like, actively repressed. So that's why you don't speak Swahili, right? And Spanish arises because the people need a way to talk to each other, and it's been allowed to grow as opposed to being like, no, you can't speak this, you can't do this, you have to assimilate. And it's just funny how still today it still has such a big impact on everything, like the way we treat each other. Like, it's I don't know. Yes, I don't know if it's fascinating the right word, but you wouldn't think even now it would still play a big part, but it does.
Yeah. But before you start, why don't you introduce yourself, Melvin? Tell the people.
Oh, I didn't.
You didn't introduce yourself.
Melvin Ishmael Johnson, the host, playwright, director. I'm directing SÁBADO Morning, George Corbin's great play, which I would love for you to come out and check that out. I have another play, Catch the Tiger, which Bill directed about Marcus Garvey and J. Edgar Hoover, how J. Edgar Hoover studied the Marcus Garvey movement to develop the whole COINTELPRO concept. Just a couple of small things. And now I think we're ready to move over to Jack.
You might be ready, but... When I go to some of these groups, I was talking about the community coalition one. This is one of the songs that I'm trying to see if I can do it. It's called Las Caras Lindas, and it means the beautiful faces. The lyric says the beautiful faces of my black people are like a parade of living molasses, and when that parade goes by, that blackness lifts my spirits. The beautiful faces of my black race have known sadness, pain, tears. These are the facts of life. But inside there's great love. We are like molasses that laughs. We're like molasses that cries. We're like molasses that loves. In every kiss, there's great emotion, and for that reason, I'm proud of this complexion. We are loving darkness, a poetic brightness. We have rhythm, we have melody. The beautiful faces of my black people. Las caras lindas de mi gente negra son un desfile de melaza en flor, que cuando pasan frente a mí se alegran de su negrura todo el corazón. Las caras lindas de mi raza prieta tienen de llanto, de pena y dolor. Son las verdades que la vida reta, pero que llevan dentro mucho amor. Somos la melaza que ríe. Somos la melaza que llora. Ay, Dios mío. Somos la melaza que ama. Y cada beso es conmovedor. Por eso vivo orgulloso de su colorido. Somos petón amable de clara poesía. Tienen su ritmo, tienen melodía. Ay, ay, ay. Las caras lindas de mi gente negra. Qué lindas son, pero qué bonitas son, lindas son, chulas son, ay, qué lin, ay Señor, te lo dije ya. Qué linda, qué linda, qué linda, qué linda, qué linda, que son bonitas, que son bien bonitas, que son bien chulitas, que son bien bonitas, chulitas, qué linda que son. Well,
Great.
kind of hard to play in this armchair.
That's great, man.
Okay, I think we got a phone caller on the line. What I'm going to do now, I'm going to turn it over to Bill White. He's going to spotlight Public Works and then also talk to Craig. Here's Bill White.
Hi. Before let's talk to Craig, seeing that he's on the line. Hi, Craig.
Yes, hello, good evening.
Hi. Craig is a wonderful playwright, and I'm going to be directing a piece of his, Strangled Nocturnes, and on next Wednesday, the 28th.
It's a two-act play.
A two-act play.
Drama. Very dramatic.
Yes, and it takes place in the Fiji Islands in 1925. And it's a really exotic location. And welcome, Craig.
Thank you very much.
Yes, maybe we could start off by you telling the audience a little bit more about Strangled Nocturnes.
Well, let's see. Well, it'll help to know how to put this if I knew what sort of audience I'd be talking to.
Oh, a variety of audience listens to this show.
The truth will set you free.
The truth will set you free.
Wow, what a relief. In this day and age, thank you, gentlemen. I appreciate the forum. All right, I will endeavor to speak the truth. Okay, what do you want to know? What do you... Strangled Nocturne, the play?
Yes. Why did you write it? What urged what urged you to write it?
Well, I've been a very adventurous spirit all my life, and at a young age, I traveled alone to Mexico with nothing but a movie camera, and I traveled all over that country. And in certain jungle areas, I actually met some expatriate Americans and English who had forsworn their native countries to live in isolation or poverty or blissful abandonment, shall we say, of Western civilization. This was a fascinating group of people, and I never forgot it. Then I found myself at UCLA, and I was studying film and the history of American cinema, the world cinema, and I saw fantastic melodramas of the 20s and 30s set in exotic lands. They often were stories about expatriate Americans or English living in so-called third world countries. I became fascinated with that, and I started reading a lot, especially Somerset Maugham, the English novelist, who set many of his stories in foreign lands that he himself had traveled to. And, well, one day, purely by happenstance, I was in the rare book section of the UCLA library, and I came across this tattered volume. I pulled it out, and it said, "My 30 Years on the Fiji Islands." And it was written by a British civil engineer, and it was published in 1909. I thought it was quite fascinating, and I realized I knew nothing about the Fiji Islands. Never taught about it in school, as I could recall. So I was curious, and I sat in that library. I read the book from cover to cover, fascinated, spellbound, and amazed at the story that this author told about his supposed true life experiences on the Fiji Islands back in those days. He was one of a small group of Caucasians, Europeans, and a couple of Americans who were on that island. And the nightmare stories he told, I frankly thought it was all exaggeration. So I went to more scientific studies, the sort of things Margaret Mead and anthropologists would write about, the characteristics and customs of foreign tribes and things of that nature. I thought, let's see what they'll say about it. And even these scientific studies verified everything this author had said. He described the details of the culture. It was one of the most warlike cultures ever to appear on Earth, I think you could say. These people, the only musical instrument they had were war drums. Their entire culture and life was geared toward battle, war, aggression, and it seemed extremely harsh. And I thought, oh my goodness, I said and I was about 24, 25 years old at the time, mind you. And I was living at Venice Beach. And this is the mid-'70s, or 76. That's when I started it, in 76, believe it or not. I lived near Muscle Beach, and this character from Austria was out there working out. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Who knew? Who knew, Bill? I mean, I'm sort of a Forrest Gump. I've walked my way through history, in certain ways. I really have found myself in the middle or the fringes of some great historical moments, I got to say, in the people I've met. But anyway, I'm getting sidetracked here. Strangled Nocturne. So there I was, living on Venice Beach, and it turns to night out there too. You can stroll the beaches back then, less populated and everything, late at night, and hear the crashing waves and get very, very in tune with the primitive, with the memories I had when I was in Mexico and everything. And I just started writing right there on the beach.
Was this the first play you ever wrote?
No. It was my second full-length play. I had already been exploring with plays back in high school and film scripts. I actually got fascinated with movie making, 8mm, then Super 8, and I wrote scripts and cast the kids in my English or drama class who were eager to be in a movie.
Yeah. Also, Craig, I directed a play of Craig, Skiddy Ruins, with Ed Asner and a few other notable actors, and we had a really good evening.
Oh, it was wonderful. I was so thrilled that Ed Asner agreed to and liked my script.
Yes.
And Charlie, remember Charlie from...
From Night Court.
From Night Court. Robinson, Charlie Robinson. I was so honored to have those two. And the rest of the cast were great as well. That was my comedy, sort of an homage and a spoof a bit on early Hollywood. And it's totally different from a Strangled Nocturne. I was in a very, very deep spot emotionally at that time. And I just poured my heart and soul into that one.
Well, Strangled Nocturne is about a group of expatriate Europeans as well as Americans who the doctor, the lead character, is about to return to Europe. And during the play, his past kind of catches up with him. And it's a really fascinating study of racial views in the 1925.
When is the reading again?
The reading is going to be at the Moment Theatre on September 28th at 7:15. And the Moment Theatre is 665 Heliotrope Avenue. It's just off Melrose Avenue. I think the zip is 90004. We'd love to see you come and hear this reading. I think it's fascinating. It's not usual. It's not the usual readings you go to. But it brings an aspect of life and black life, foreign black life, that we very rarely hear or see. But thank you very much, Craig.
Oh, thank you very much for asking me to be on your podcast.
Not at all.
I appreciate that very much.
Okay.
Okay, good night.
Thanks. That was Craig Coleman, writer, actor. He also acts with the Roby as well downtown.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to have a spotlight. Each time we have our Theatre in Focus, we spotlight a theatre, a small theatre that is out there working, bringing theatre to Los Angeles. And tonight we're going to spotlight Public Works Improvisational Theatre. They specialize in cultural things, activism, and they try to have performers who give you some aspect of their life, some aspect of their political life, some aspect of their love life. And in fact, you have performed over at the Studio Theatre with Jack's Public Work
Lee's
Improvisational.
Public Works Theatre, yes.
Mm-hmm. And you've also performed down at Artshare, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Lee's Theatre is not it's not a bricks and mortars place. He goes to different venues, and many of them have been. He's put programs on at Artshare where I have performed for him.
Mm-hmm. He says here that he's been with the theatre since 1979, and he's now the artistic director. He's been that artistic director since 2001, and the founding member, Marlene Rasnick, she died, and he took over. And Lee has led a fascinating life, which he brings to his performance. He has been a radio personality. He has been a preacher, an actor, a musician, producer, host, union organizer, husband, father, grandfather, and champion, as he said, for the underserved and wronged. This week, Lee Beck, Artistic Director and Public Works Improvisational Theatre. When you see them advertising, please go out and support them. Melvin?
All right. Thank you, Bill. I'd like to do a shout out to Judy Bowman, who couldn't make it tonight, but another one of Judy's project, History Detective, will be meeting this Saturday at the Holman's Methodist Church, 3320 West Adams Boulevard, Los Angeles, California, 90018. And this is at 12:30. They'll be doing workshops. So we ask you all to come out and join History Detective, where they explore all the little hidden gems about Los Angeles, where the producing artistic director, Ben Guillory, with four of the playwrights, myself, Kurt Maxey, Julie, and Oscar. So come out and join us this particular Saturday.
And essentially at this workshop, they look at stories that your father told you about Los Angeles or you experienced about Los Angeles, and what your parents did. Is there any interesting aspect about Los Angeles that you'd like people to know about? That kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. Now, at this time, I want to get back to our subject that we was talking about, and that's how to improve Black, Hispanic, Latino relationships. And I think it starts with our young people. And I would like to play a clip from Tony Brown, who set up one of the best after-school programs in Los Angeles. It's called OLA, Heart of Los Angeles. And then we'll come back and have a few comments and talk about that. How do you craft after-school programs that deal with gang intervention? We talked about a little of it a little earlier.
Well, first of all, Heart of Los Angeles tries, I think, step one is to do the prevention side. right? I mean, we want to prevent kids from joining them in the first place. So we start with kids really young, but we do meet kids along the way. We're middle school and high school, and there are times in which we have to try to intervene. The answer to the question, I think, really is create alternatives that are relevant. Create opportunities, alternatives that will help those kids to feel connected to what's happening in their neighborhood, at their school, in their life. I think a lot of kids, well, at least in our neighborhood, the gangs tend to prey on those kids who are having problems with the language. You know, if they have a kid who doesn't speak much when they're spoken to, very shy about language, they become a target. If they see kids who, are trying to push away from their parents, walk a few steps ahead, walk a few steps behind, don't necessarily want to be associated. If they see kids who are starting to try to emulate this pop American culture, all of those things, and kids don't realize this, but all of those things become identifiers. Pick me, for the gangs. They say, because they'll come in and their psychology might be something like, so, I see that your parents you always have to walk these 5 blocks alone. Well, let me guess, your parents aren't around, they must work all the time. Let me guess, they basically tell you to come straight home, turn on the television, and don't go outside. Man, my dad was the same way. Oh, you didn't have a dad? Yeah, actually, I don't have a dad either. And they start to do all those things. They try to pull away any connection the child has to staying away from gangs. And they try to drive those wedges in between what connects kids to this culture here. I bet you're doing really bad in school. Yeah, I get it. They don't get you. They don't get us.
Wow.
And they do that. And so after school programs should be the ones to come in and say, hey, listen, we value who you are. We have all the patience in the world. We believe that if we give you a chance, you can realize whatever dream you have. It's not a silly dream. And we support the kids in that way. And we let the kids be the kids. And we let them feel important for who they are and who they'd like to be. And even if they don't know who they'd like to be, we still give them that confidence, try to empower them to feel good about who they are right now. And that it's okay not to necessarily know quite yet. And then we start to expose them with the arts, music, athletics, dance, painting, graphic arts, filmmaking, anything and everything, robotics, anything and everything, to give them alternatives so that they have to then, when they're faced with the alternative of getting involved in some sort of criminal activity, they can say, you know what, I don't need to do that over there, because if I did all of that over there, I'd be giving up all of this over here.
Okay, and then anybody like to pick up on what he's talking about?
I like what he says about giving them alternatives, because I think one of the biggest things needed for change is for people to believe that it's possible for them to change, or if they put themselves out there, they can achieve what they want, rather than being in an environment where, like, this is all you have. No matter what your situation, where you're coming from, you'll end up here, or here. And getting in early and getting people to really believe, like, I could do robotics, I could do something else. It's probably the most important thing. Like, just something as simple as, like, getting people to believe that they can really be more than where they're from.
Well, okay, I'm now getting back to our subject, where we're talking about improving Hispanic black relationships. And we know we have a lot of our young people that's caught up in the prison system, the prison industrial complex that they bring back to to the communities. And I remember I was talking to this brother who just passed, I think Bobby knew him too. His name was Big Earn. Yeah. And Big Earn spent 45 years locked up. And I remember I was having a conversation with Big Earn, and Big Earn mentioned something to me that happened inside of the prison system in the 70s here in California. And it was an alliance that was made between the Southern Hispanics that live in Los Angeles, down in this area, and the Nazis. He said inside of the prison system, they created an alliance. And then you had a alliance between the BGF, the George Jackson, Huey P. Newton, and all of them came out of. And then you had the Mexican Mafia and the Aryan Brotherhoods and combinations of that. And I think it's so, since we're talking about Hispanic-Black relationships, and I think, because when you look at some of these communities that deals with these gang things, Hispanic gangs and Black gangs and all that kind of stuff. So how do we create solutions to that? It's what we was talking about early, the fact that we can't really communicate because we speak two different languages out here, these two communities.
I think that, as George said earlier, people are people. And somehow we have gotten away from that recognition, that somehow we feel our cultures are different, that we don't realize the basis of our culture. As you also mentioned earlier, if we could work together, and we must not forget that a lot of Mexican and other Spanish-speaking people are working with African Americans in trying to improve this. We're not the first, but I think if we begin to enjoy our own foods, both soul food as well as Mexican food. I know it's kind of crazy, but if we begin to adopt certain things, we're going to school together, especially down here in South Los Angeles. Eventually, we will begin to see people as people. I lived many years in New York, and the Spanish and Black folks there are a lot more cohesive than they are in southern U.S. or western U.S. And sometimes it's. I think it's because they mixed a lot more. They're facing the same issues. They group together to be able to achieve certain things. Let's say the Puerto Ricans and the folks from Santo Domingo, and they come from a culture where there are a variety of races. So they don't look at a black person as foreign. A Mexican family, although some Mexican families may have black folks in their family, for the most part, it's they don't have a black person in the family. So I believe as soon as we integrate more in each other's neighborhood, we're going to have friction, because you can never have two people come together without friction. But eventually they will begin going to school together. They'll begin being on the same teams together. They're going to be sharing the same team, those kinds of things. And eventually they will begin to recognize that the other person is just like them.
Okay, but in the 20s, I remember Herbert Harrison, Du Bois, a few of the other scholars.
Yeah.
And they pointed out that when ethnic groups come together, they usually go through 4 different stages. First, contact, and then conflict, and then accommodation, and then assimilation. Okay. Now, that was in the 20s. And then as far as mixing, wouldn't you say, because I used to read a lot of J.A. Rogers' work. You know, he talks about sex and race, Nature Knows No Color Line, 5 Black Presidents, excellent book, 100 Great Men of Color, Volume 1 and 2. And he points out that we went through those stages already, like Los Angeles, basically started by, I guess you would call them mulattoes or whatever you want to call them. Some of them actually dark blacks, like Pico, supposed to have been one of the key individuals out here. Don't you think that we've already went through those stages of mixing already?
I don't think so. I think, for instance, if we look at, I'm not saying New York is perfect or by any means, but
I'm glad to hear that.
There's a lot more mixing of people. You have a group of people who are in close quarters and they have to deal with each other. Here we move to our various communities. Here in the Lamert Park area, there are a lot more Spanish families that are moving into the neighborhood. The political inhabitants of the various districts are changing. So there are a lot of, I'm not saying, I don't think we're at that stage yet. Okay. I think we're moving towards it.
Okay. Now, how about forming political alliances that make sense? Because when you look at the African American and the Hispanic out here down south, they seem to be fighting for the same pieces of crumbs instead of forming a political alliance, like the Koreans. For example, Koreatown. You look at Koreatown. Koreatown is huge, compared to the amount of Koreans that you have out here and the amount of area that they actually dominate from an economic point of view.
Yeah, but we also have, you cannot come. It's like apples and oranges. A lot of Koreans who come here, and I may be wrong on this, they come here with an education, with funds. They have a country, a very relatively wealthy country, where funds are available for them to develop things. It's a different culture. A lot of Spanish peoples who come here for opportunity. They need education. A lot of them. They need a lot of services. They work hard, of course, and they develop their neighborhood and so on. But still, there's a difference. You cannot compare each with the other. But I do agree with you that if we work together a little bit more, we can be able to have a better say in Sacramento, in Washington, on city council. But we have to agree to look at what we want. We can still get what we want if we work together and still have our various cultures. It's not mutually exclusive. We just need to increase the pie, make the pie bigger.
Okay. Anybody else want to comment?
I think that, although I agree with many of the things that each of you have said, it strikes me that at the heart of each of your comments were very intellectual. And I think that life and community life is a lot more basic. Sex, fun. I don't mean sex in a titillating way. I mean the attraction that we all have for one. Well, I think love. It sounds. This is the hippiest thing that has ever come out of my mouth. Love is a unifying force, and the more I love you and see myself in you, the more I will be together. And it's not we can be together, and it's not so much the working together as much as doing something together. And I think that in schools, if there as an education of hobbies and things that people can do together and develop a love for something, making music together, doing something that we both like to do, I think we make a connection much stronger than an intellectual connection. Do you understand what I mean? I think the point that you made about New York being, we live in closer proximity. And the reggaeton music that's popular now is a sort of like the boogaloo a little bit before. It was a mixture of R&B and salsa, what became stuff, because people could do it together. There was an interest in this dancing and looking good together, and kids got developed bonds and things that made them better able to relate to different people when they got older, as they got older, because they had some interest that united them. Whereas trying to unite adults through working and an intellectual connection is well-intentioned, but somewhat artificial. There has to be, I don't know how to explain the sexual connection better, but I mean the natural chemistry that exists between people.
It's like an attraction.
An attraction. I'm not talking about carnal stuff. I'm talking about. You've seen people. I like that's a nice looking person. He's interested in the same thing. I mean, boom! I have a connection with that person. Doesn't mean that I want to make out with them. It means that I have some. There is some kind of a bond. There's something that we each love the same way, and we can share ideas, and we can share who we are.
But that's not any different from what we're saying, though. For instance, if you have a group of kids going to a school and they're cheering for the same team, there's a bond there that they can. They're playing together on a team. There's a bond there. We're pretty much saying the same thing. But, and I agree with you, that there has to be that connection that, I don't put it in terms of love, but a connection
I didn't have the right word, but I mean, you've met people that you like them right away or you don't like them and you don't know why. There is some kind of a chemical thing that happens with people. I just like you. I don't know, I don't like it, but it's an intangible thing that has to do with, I say, love and attraction. But maybe that's the wrong thing, because I think music is unifying in that way. If we love the same kind of music and we groove the same way, and boom, boom, we are on the road to being able to be together peacefully. More than peacefully. I
suppose it comes in with the aspect of art, or having an artistic soul.
Yeah.
And it's true, and that's why we all do what we do, because it is that expressing ourselves more than just words. It's using everything and having something deep, or having it resonate at a level that's not just intellectual. And I agree with you. But the thing is you have to be open to that, right? Like, you have to be open to accepting it and be vulnerable to that. And that's not the world that we live in. If that was possible, man, it would be so much easier. But it seems like not everybody is, or people are not interested in that. And it's trying to, if there's a way to overcome that, that's how we can get to the heart of it. But it's hard when you have have and have nots, and just that the world society we live in. It's like you have people who have a lot and people who don't. It's hard to kind of look at it the same.
So you think it has a lot to do with the type of economic system that we live in?
Yeah, I think so, because you were talking about getting the communities together and having a political voice, or having something. But there's also now the way zoning and the way they divide stuff up, it's so scientific that your voice is reduced, or those in power are able to have their influence be greater just by the way they zone things, and they can do that because they have the power. They can affect the change and thereby lessen the weaker voice. And I don't know how you overcome that. You have to raise awareness, but
Well, from a political point of view, out here in Los Angeles, what's so interesting? I mentioned them early, and that's Koreatown. You know, when I look at that situation where, when you look at the amount of property and the economic life that Koreatown controlled, and then when you move out into the political arena, you would assume that they would have 3 or 4 people on the city council, but they don't have anybody on the city council. So that's what I'm interested in looking at. How are you able to dominate such a huge part of a city like Los Angeles without actually being directly involved with the political life of the city?
I live in Chinatown. And I was interested, Aaron, when you said that you lived in China for a while. I wish that we'd had time to really find out what your views of that society were. I find, it seems to me, that especially in Chinese culture, but in Asian cultures, not so much the Japanese, but in Asian cultures, there is a more isolationist thing that goes on. They tend to, there's a Chinatown in every major city. They stay in their own way, and the rules and things, ways of living and getting along with each other are within the boundaries of that neighborhood.
Code of conduct.
Yeah, and so like the need for an outside government is not as great as with other groups that depend more on the dominant culture.
Yeah.
And when Koreans come here, this I do know, I saw it in New York, they come here and there is a Korean Businessmen's Association. They will have a loan, and they will get a little store and selling vegetables. And they sell so many vegetables, and then they pay off the loan that they got in the first place, and they get a loan, and they get a bigger vegetable and fruit stand. And they help each other in that way. You don't see that in other cultures as much, I don't think. And so, like, if a group of people is moving, they come to say the United States, and they get an apartment in a certain section, and they have a relative someplace. Come to America, and there is an apartment next door. But I mean, they build a community in that way, and they build businesses in that way. So they have a Koreatown, a Chinatown. Other groups, we don't do that as in that way. Yes, many West Indians live in the same neighborhood in New York, but it's we don't tend to have businesses and a Jamaican Businessmen's Association that lends every immigrant some money to start some kind of,
They do, but
well, then
it's kind of
are the Trinidadians included? I mean, West Indians is a bigger thing than Chinese.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. It could be a Jamaican organization or Trinidad,
and so they would do.
Yeah, it's
so
a lot different.
We are divided in a way that many Asians aren't. So, like your example of Koreatown, I think that they have a different kind of bond than others of us have been able to forge.
And do you think that was impacted by integration? By, what was that, Brown versus the Board of Education, 1954, that broke down school desegregation? Do you think we were more economically cohesive and we had stronger economic communities when we were segregated, when we forcibly segregated. And now, ever since the whole concept of integration, you think that has a lot to do with it over here?
No, I think that the same bankers and lawyers and so on that were in this restricted community are still around, and they're even larger. It's just that they are spread out in the society. They're not in a particular community. I think it's kind of a cop-out to blame Brown versus Board of Education. I think that it's up to us to make that kind of difference. It's, for instance, Oprah. She's done a lot of economic development within the black community. For example, she has developed her plays, which usually is the majority of the characters are black.
But how do that filter down to, like, for example, here in Los Angeles, right, you got a situation where the African-American community probably make up about, I would say, 10% if they counted right. And when you look down on Skid Row, you got about 85% of the people living in the tents and laying in the streets is African-American. Yeah, I mean, how do we get sense out of that in a city like Los Angeles?
I don't know. I don't think you can. I think it's up to us to develop our own organizations to deal with that. To say, well, we have a lot of rich black people and rich Hispanic Mexican folks in the community, and we have all those people living in tents and primarily black.
85% black.
It is up to us to try and do something about it. We cannot look at another group of people and say, well, they have done it. Why can't we? There's no reason why we can't. It's simply a matter of developing the resources that we can develop. Mm-hmm. I think that we should stop putting so much on others and try and at least try to develop something for ourselves.
I mean, but isn't that what we're trying? I don't want to dominate the conversation. Anybody else want to chime in?
I think I didn't know that we were going to get into this kind of conversation, and I'm ill prepared because what I wanted to, this love thing that I keep talking about, it's all inclusive. One of the things that loving ourselves, knowing who we are, enables us to progress and to be able to. If we love ourselves and we can see ourselves in others, this makes for more of a union. When I was younger, I have pelo malo, bad hair. Why is it bad hair? Because it's not like Aaron's hair. Aaron has pelo lacio. Él tiene pelo bueno. Who has bad hair? Bad people. On some level, we have been taught not to love ourselves. So it's many times the people that you talk about seeing living in the tents have really been beaten down and have no love for themselves. I think that we have, it has to do with developing a love muscle that cuts many ways for yourself and being able to see yourself in someone else past little things that have been put on us to see. I remember my grandmother. I look just like my father. I'm dark skinned, and my grandmother, she didn't like, I remember her waking up one night and she was pinching my nose because it shouldn't be flat. It should, try to make it straighter. We have this thing with, tenemos que mejorar la raza. That means we have to make the race better. How do you make the race better? You make it more like everybody look like Brad Pitt. There are many things that go into advancement, and I think at the basis it is a question of, I keep saying love, and I don't know how to, I mean love of ourselves, love of who we are as human beings, being able to see me being able to see myself in you, and the love I have for me, I can have for you.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And that's what I meant about at the center point of Hispanic-Black relationships, this is nothing new. Like I mentioned earlier, they had 800 years of the Black Africans and Hispanic Spain that actually educated the world. And then when we look at them now and we see them fight, we might see them in areas like Compton and Watts and all like that, fighting for the same little piece of the pie, where the majority of them suffer in a situation where we are a huge majority, when we can form some kind of political alliance that might be able to change the situation here. That's what I'm asking is at the that's what I'm trying to be clear on. I guess
I see what you're saying, and I think it goes to getting to see like together that voice is more powerful, right? You can speak truth to power. It's like everyone can unify again, and really see, rather than being like we're two different communities, when really it's like a minority community, right? And that voice combined together is more powerful and can get both parties what they want, what they need, as opposed to separate. But
what has interested me is the unions, the housekeepers. They've become a very powerful union, and a lot of them are illegal. I don't like to use the word illegal, but they undocumented workers.
Yes.
And they have developed a real powerful organization here in Los Angeles. And the reason why they've developed that is because they can see a goal,
a shared goal,
where they can develop those resources.
Yeah.
Now, I'm sure they had union organizers, but it's the people who developed that strong union. And I think that the reason why we're having such problems is because we don't have that shared goal.
Yeah.
It's not clear to people that if we do this one thing, it will benefit me. Maybe it's a little selfish, but I think that that's the basis of the issue, that people have to see that they can develop not a political power, but something tangible that's coming back to them. And coming back to the homeless situation, especially down in
Skid Row.
As you know, I knew someone who was down in Skid Row. Incredibly talented person. He, a wonderful musician. I mean, when I'm saying just wonderful, he performed and worked with a lot of top flight artists. And he just couldn't, he just couldn't get to that goal. He couldn't give up all those barriers that he was facing, the drugs and And he kept blaming other people. You know, these people screwed me, and probably they did. But he usually said that Skid Row will remain Skid Row because the people who are paid to service them will always be paid.
Well, yeah,
I don't know if it's true
There's
or
an
not.
institution there to keep alive, so...
Yes, so the money goes to that institution, and
A bureaucracy.
yeah,
I agree. Okay.
that could be it. But
it could,
yeah. But I still think that if a lot of the people down there, from what I understand and I hear, are mentally ill,
Yeah.
and so they can't really form these kinds of like intellectual things.
But
I still think that we need to concentrate on trying to develop some way to show people that they can benefit from political organization.
And I agree with that. But it kind of goes to what Jack says, like the self-love or that worthiness of it. And this, I don't know if this sounds conspiratorial, but it's like media this idea of race is really just a construct, right? Or the idea of like whitening the skin or improving the race. So all these ideas that come out of like what we see, what we hear, what is a projection of an ideal, right? Like what's the best version of something. And if you don't match up to that, you start to question, well, if I'm not this, I'm that. And if I'm that, that's not good because this is what I'm being told is good, right? Like,
And if I don't measure up to what is good, I might start to self-medicate and drop out of society.
yeah. Or like, I'm not this, I'm here. So I'm not ideal, but those people are worse than I am. So they're even worse than me. So if I put them down, I can feel better about myself. Like I can improve my lot in life by putting other people down, denigrating this other side. And that's where you start to get all this stuff.
Well, you know something? We mentioned Cesar Chavez, and Dr. King has been mentioned tonight. I've worked with both of those men. And to work with King, I went to Mississippi. And I saw poor white people, guys with one tooth in their head, and they lived in a house where there was a couple of wrecked cars in the lawn, and a washing machine that didn't work on the porch, and a flea-ridden dog, and whatever. But he was better than a nigger, and I believe that. I won't say Mr. Trump, or I don't want to get.
You can say it.
Well, no, because I don't fully believe that's it. I mean, I think that Trump is doing what he believes is his job, and the job is to keep those divisions. I mean, as long as you feel you're better than that guy, I've got you guys separated. You don't see any. There's no commonality between the two groups. I'm better than that guy over there, and I think this man, Trump, is the one that had my interest at heart. Are you crazy? Your dog is half dead. But that is separating people and making them dislike each other and dislike themselves is the wedge that is put between people economically and politically. Political and economic stuff is intellectual, whereas if somehow we can engender an idea of commonality, I'm going to give that up because like I'm getting no. But I think you know what I mean.
But I think love is great. But I think
it sounds so corny, doesn't it?
No, it doesn't at all. I think it's wonderful.
I love people.
I think it's wonderful. I just think that the more important thing is to find the economic interest.
It's more actionable, right? It's more tangible.
Actionable.
Yeah.
It's more actionable, and those housekeepers found that, and they have a very powerful union that the politicians have to deal with.
But I think their union started first with a commonality, with being able to see that your needs are my needs. My needs are your needs. We are the same in that way. Let's form together. That intellectual thing about let's form together came after they saw themselves in each other. It's all
That I don't know. That I don't know.
Absolutely.
Which came first, but the end result.
I think an organization is a sophisticated, educated, intellectual thing, whereas the basic response, I'm saying love, affection, or self-recognition, is really something that little kids that don't know any language yet know. It is a basic thing. And the idea of forming unions and acting politically is an intellectual thing that
we're not
later.
disagreeing. We're not disagreeing.
Why aren't we? I want to fight.
Let me say this then real quick because and then we want to get around to having Jack play another song for him if he can. But I want to get back to the original point that I made about where I think the importance of the African American learning Spanish as a second language out here on the West Coast. And what that means is because the African American out here, you need allies. And the most natural allies is the one in which they is pushing to be your major enemy. And to me, from a historical point of view, a racial point of view, these two particular groups have more in common. The thing that keeps them from communicating is the fact that the African American, because of what happened in slavery, we speak only the basic language of the slave master that we had. For example, one of the things that I notice about Skid Row, right, is another black group of homeless people down there, and it's the black Cubans. It's a huge amount of black Cubans that's also live on Skid Row in the tents, right? But what I notice is that the black Cubans, you know who they can relate to? Those that speak the Spanish language. Because it's hard for them to relate to the African American over here coming from Mississippi, Alabama, different places like that. But that's just I guess the last point that I want to point out is I think it's important for the African American here in Los Angeles. And we have that happening a lot up north, where you have a better relationship between the black community and the Hispanic community.
Okay, I don't want to beat a dead horse, but learning a language is more than learning the words. It's the sound, it's the musicality of the language. I have a white friend, y ella habla español perfectamente. But she does not sound like she's speaking Spanish, although I can understand every word she says.
There's no
she
soul
knows
in
that,
it.
but she doesn't. I don't hear myself in her. So like getting black people to learn the words and the grammar is not. I don't see that is a particularly effective building block because you're gonna. The separation is inherent in the way you speak the language that you learn to speak. You don't speak like a native speaker. Those Cubans that are in those tents, they hear the music. They hear their mother speaking to them. They hear their father, their brother. They hear something that they recognize in themselves. It's the musicality of the language that they respond to, not the language alone. And if you go in there and speak Spanish with an American accent, you're still separate. Oh, it's easier for you to communicate. I understand what you want from me, but I think you want something from me. It's not that you want to share something with me. You are still separate.
Yeah. Also, we haven't really dealt with the strong ethnocentric idea of English only that a lot of Los Angelinos believe that the Spanish-speaking community should learn English.
Well, I grew up with that. I told you that.
So that's
They
still
stole my culture from me.
That's still one of the dominant things here, in not only in Los Angeles but in the country. In the Republicans, for instance, are dead set against providing money to immigrants to
Education, healthcare.
yeah. So it's a tricky issue. It seems like a great idea, but I right now, as I sit here, I can't see how we can get from point A to point B unless we teach it in school.
Yeah.
If we teach it in school from the beginning, then not only do they do the same things as kids in the same school, but they begin to relate to the same things.
So why not? Because we're talking about the future generations anyway, right? We're not talking about old timers like us. 20, 30 years from now, I don't even think we'll be around.
But
We might.
yeah.
Watch it.
But we're the ones.
Aaron to be around.
Yeah,
Aaron's
God
gonna
who
be
got
around.
women. Yeah.
but we as the older ones are the ones who fund it. And that's the real issue. That's the number of the problem, that it's going to be very I saw this in Canada. I lived in Canada for a little bit, and Elliott Trudeau, their prime minister there, is part of the Liberal Party, introduced a situation where everything in Canada should be in two languages, English and French. French is spoken primarily in Quebec and in some other places in English Canada. And there was this incredible uproar about that. Now, it would help them, but they just felt that they shouldn't have to deal. They were brought up as English, and they should be English. And I think we have aspects of that here in this
That's what we're
country.
talking about. Okay, look, let's let Jack play another song for us, and Jack will be at the studio stage. We got 10 minutes left. He'll be at the studio stage this coming Saturday at 4 o'clock. Come out and check him out, 520 Northwestern Avenue. And then later on that night, the great play, Sábado Morning, written by George Corbins. We're in our last weekend. Come see Aaron perform, JC and Jonathan, TJ.
All right. You're talking about Aaron's going to be around and I'm going to be dead. Age is just a state of mind until it kills you. Getting old is all in your head until you fall down dead. So make the music of your life a song that really thrills you, and sing it loud and hearty like Pavarotti. They say our time is short, I'd say it's very. And if worrying about it made it longer, I'd say go ahead and worry. Life is a one-shot deal. You can't borrow, beg, or steal. Enjoy it slowly, no need to hurry. One day it's spring, and you're running around sowing wild oats. The next day it's winter, and you're sitting on a park bench wearing 2 overcoats. You wish you could be young and free forever, but I know you know that wish will never come true. Although you've watched those wrinkles forming right before your eyes, when they take you to the old folks' home, it's gonna come as a surprise. Hey, 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 yeah, yeah. La, la, da, da, da. La, da, la, da, la, da. I don't save money. When I'm gone, I'm leaving none. I want the day I die to be a sad day for everyone. Whether you're a baritone, a bass, or a soprano, you'd be very wise to be advised by Luciano. Look inside your heart until you find your greatest passion, and then, my friend, indulge it till you cash in. 'Cause age is just a state of mind until it kills you. Getting old is all in your head until you fall down dead. So make the music of your life a song that really thrills you, and sing it loud. Don't stop until the day you drop. Sing it loud and hearty like Pavarotti. Ridi Pagliacci.
Hey.
Okay, Jack Landro. We got to see Jack playing at the world stage. We got to get Jack up in the world stage and at Barbara Morrison right around the corner. We're at the heart of the black community here.
Oh,
World stage have an excellent long history. Remember the brother Billy Higgins, one of the founders of the world stage over there. So let's go around for some closing comments real quick and we'll close this off. Start with Aaron.
Oh man, I don't know. I really, really enjoyed every part of this, like the conversation, and yeah, I don't know. I feel it was very insightful. And one question I have for you guys is race something that you think about every day? At least you place, especially in America, right? Is it something that you think about every day? And if so, is it because just natural curiosity, or do you feel like you're forced to think about it?
Percy Sutton, a New York politician, and he said, if one day you wake up and you forget that you're black, by the time 5 o'clock rolls around, somebody will have reminded you. Race, I think, this is a racist society.
Yeah.
And by that, I mean, we are all racists. I'm a racist. You know, they always, when I was young, I remember they would always say that Duke Ellington was an excellent Negro musician, but they never said that Benny Goodman was a great Jewish clarinetist.
Yeah.
I mean, we pigeonhole people. It is a racist society. And what my grandfather was getting at, you know, when telling me, you're not a Negro, you're not in that. You are not a Negro, you are a Puerto Rican.
Yeah.
Because to get out of that frame of mind, that racist thing, I think that, yeah, in this country, that is what we have to fight. I would like people to fight.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, just one last thing.
Sure.
You know the thing, Donald Trump says something that, well, many things he says that offended me, but like he talks about when he says the ridiculous thing that the Mexican people love me. They love me because I give them jobs. Mexicans I hang out with don't want the jobs that he's given. They don't want to wash those dishes or carry whatever it is you carry at the construction site. I mean, you know.
and also
He views a Mexican is a guy there with a straw hat on, you know, and he has a racist view of what the other people who don't look like him are.
You know, he's 70 years old. He's always had those views.
Yeah,
and it's amazing
because
that
he's been able to live in a bubble.
Yeah, it's amazing that people think he's just going to change overnight. I mean, it's a little perplexing to me too.
Yeah, he's going to be more presidential, please.
Yeah. But you know, when I was growing up in Jamaica, the Rastafarians were a sect that you should not be associated with. That's how, when I was growing up, it was. Now, the Rastafarian people have introduced into Jamaica a sense of self-love. And it's amazing if you knew Jamaica growing up before independence and after independence. It's a completely different country in terms of outlook. I can remember an African leader. I was very young, coming to Jamaica to visit. I don't remember which one of them. I think he was from Angola. And the established society was just saying he's a communist and da-da-da-da-da-da. And the moment that he arrived in Jamaica, the Jamaican people welcomed him in such love that they couldn't care less about what
his
their
politics
were. And I think that was because of the Rastafarian culture. And I think Jamaica owes them a debt of gratitude for that.
And one of their tenets is one love.
That's right.
Bob Marley always talking about one love.
One love.
That's closure right there.
All right, then. But yes, to answer your question, and I thought about that for a second, and I guess, yes, every day I'm reminded, like what you were saying earlier, that racial thing coming to your mind. I would have to, as a black person, especially coming from down south in the Mississippi Delta, which forced it upon me to understand that at an early age. I had to know what the rules was about. Okay, I would like to extend special thanks to George Corbin. We had him on the phone. We had Craig Kalman on the phone. Jack Landreau, great music, great conversation. Aaron Garcia, he performing in Sábado morning. Come out and check him out for the last weekend.
They haven't fired me yet.
And my co-host, Bill White. Thank you for tuning in to Focus on Theater. And from your host, Melvin Ishmael Johnson, my co-host, Bill White, may the peace and blessings of the life-giving creative spirit be upon you and upon your family. I leave you with a trailer for Sábado mornings.
Fear is the mother of isolation, as grief is the mother of guilt. The acceptance of losing someone can be almost impossible. And when the hope of looking forward to seeing someone you loved is forever in doubt, the spaces in between can lead to a life sentence of loneliness. Eddie is a retired Los Angeles police officer. Rosa, a restaurant manager. His wife committed suicide. Her husband disappeared in Mexico. Their self-imposed guilt has led them to destroy their dreams. But their attraction to one another might be the key towards unlocking the deep sadness and uncertainty that has held their souls in a timeless prison without love or connection to the outside world. Isolated from family, friends, and life, they're really only hiding from themselves. Director Melvin Ishmael Johnson presents a story by George Corbin. Sábado Mornings, developed by the Playwrights Workshop Lab at the Roby Theater. Sábado Mornings stars J.C. Cadena as Rosa, Jonathan Wynn is Eddie, and also starring T.J. Ba and Aaron Garcia. Sábado Mornings, opening Thursday, September 8th, running through Sunday, September 25th, at Studio Stage, 520 Northwestern. Fridays and Saturdays at 8 and Sundays at 5. Tickets available at blacktheater.org.